Welcome back, everyone, to the Real Talk Podcast, episode 17. Joining me on today's show is, as always, my co-host, Mike Gillis. Mike, what is going on?
What's up, guys? It's great to be back recording an episode.
Yes, for sure. Just to give you a little recap on that, yes, we have been absent for a little bit. I actually just checked, and our last episode was December 30th, and so here we are, 12 days later. Yes, we like to do one of these a week, so it doesn't seem like it was a big hiatus, but at the same time, we like to be pumping out episodes at least once a week, including specials here and there when we have a movie in full to review, where we dedicate a whole podcast. And so, me and Mike are still in school, obviously, and we had, 2 consecutive snow days backed by a weekend.
Well, not snow days, cold days.
Yeah, but the first one was essentially a snow day. And so that just kind of made complications because we like to record in person, and we usually just record right after school. But, when there's no school to go to, it kind of makes it difficult, as well as the roads were primarily closed as well. So that led to difficulties. Yes, we are doing this one over Skype, so you're probably wondering, well, why wouldn't you do the other ones over Skype? We had problems with microphones as well. My mic, I only recently got working again. It was only getting about 20% of the audio that it usually gets, and now there was something wrong with the top of it. It wasn't catching all the audio. Point is, we are back. It's only been 12 days, but I'm very excited because I know we've been in the new year for 12 days, but it's our first show of the new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, very excited to be back. And without further ado, I'm ready to get right into it. Want to start with some box office?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Obviously, due to missing last week's show, we don't have last week's box office. We have the most recent box office. 2 weeks ago is box office, my mistake. We do have last week's box office. Coming in at number 1 is Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, hauling in $37.23 million, dropping 25.6%. Coming in at number 2 is Insidious, The Last Key, making $29.5 million in its opening weekend, with a budget of only $10 million, so already made its money back in full.
As horror movies usually do.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a bit of a franchise at this point,
Yeah, it's true.
Coming in at number 3 is Star Wars The Last Jedi, making $23.7 million, dropping 54.8%. Coming in at number 4 is the musical and Golden Globe nominated Greatest Showman, making $13.7 million, dropping 11.3%. And rounding out the top 5 is Pitch Perfect 3, making $10.29 million, dropping 38.7%. Mike, after hearing the top 5, what stands out?
Surprised that, well, maybe not surprised, because Insidious got, horrible reviews, just, abysmal reviews.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's a franchise, so I think people who are connected to it are going to continue to watch it. And I'm also not really surprised that Star Wars has been bumped down. It's been out for a while. Jumanji has kind of stepped up its game, I guess. It's not really been hurt too much by the weeks it's been out, because it came only a week out after Star Wars.
Yeah, and so Jumanji taking over the number 1 spot, I think it's pretty impressive considering, we just had a new release with Insidious, and as you were saying about horror movies, just small budget making it back. Top 5 is very interesting to me this week, because 4 out of the 5 movies, we just have runoffs from December blockbusters, with Jumanji, Star Wars, Greatest Showman, Pitch Perfect 3. And then, Insidious, the January new release, sneaks into the number 2. And it's the perfect month for it to come out. It's a horror movie that no one's going to remember after.
I don't know why, it's weird that they didn't, wait till, a November, September, October month. It's kind of odd for horror movies that come out, in January.
Yeah.
So I guess they were expecting it not to do good.
If I'm not mistaken, the last Insidious movie did come out in January. That could be wrong, but you'd be surprised. A decent amount of horror movies actually do come out in January, just because, they're made for not that much and they're not going up against anything big, because January is not typically a big box office month. It is a pretty slow month. Just looking at stuff that got left out of the top 5, I, Tonya, it was getting a lot of Golden Globe buzz around it.
That's what I want to see.
Don't get me wrong, it was never going to be a cash cow of a film, but at the same time, when there's buzz around a movie around award season, you kind of expect it to maybe sneak up there. It comes in at number 12, actually, this week. Anything else? Darkest Hour, another, did it get nominated? It got nominated for the Golden Globes, right?
Yeah, Gary Oldman actually won Best Actor in
Yeah,
film.
yeah. My mistake. I was just blanking on it because I didn't get to watch. We'll get into it later, but I didn't get to watch the Golden Globes in full. I only watched parts of it, but we're still gonna. The prime focus of today's show is recapping winners and losers and what we think will carry over into Oscar nominations. Just giving my final thoughts on the top five. Nothing too surprising. I've seen The Last Jedi. You know, you see it making 23 million, and you oh no, is what's going on? It's already made, I believe, worldwide. It's made 1.2 billion.
Yeah, they're okay.
It does go to show, though, interest has gone down significantly because Force Awakens finished with very close to 2 billion. So obviously they're making a lot of money. They're not losing anything with this movie. But, you know, the difference between this one and Force Awakens, I know it's going to be in theaters for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But if it finishes, it's at 1.229 billion right now. So I don't think it's too crazy to say that it won't reach 1.3 or 1.4. And if the difference between The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens is $500 to $600 million, you know, it does kind of show that. Don't get me wrong, Force Awakens had a lot more going for it with first returning the characters and, you know, first new film in like a decade. But at the same time, you know, there is that bit of fatigue, I guess, with movies coming out so quickly together.
Yeah, do you think it's because of the harsh fan criticism?
I think that has played a factor in it for sure, because this isn't one where people were telling, you know, friends and family, maybe not as glued into it, fans of the franchise, to go out and see it as they did with Force Awakens. They might have been a little more hesitant of, like, you know, I don't know how they should have treated Luke Skywalker, and, you know, it is long too.
Yeah, it's
longest Star Wars movie by a good 20-25 minutes. But yeah, I do think that fan criticism does have a solid factor in its I wouldn't call it downfall, but just lack of
interest.
Lack of competition with The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
All right, with that being said, any final thoughts on the box office top five?
You know, nothing really new has come out besides Insidious, so I wouldn't really say anything interesting this week. It's kind of lame.
Yeah, it is pretty stagnant, and I don't expect it to change much in the coming weeks, but we shall see as time goes on. All right, so getting into movie news, our first topic, we're not going to spend too much time on it, is there has been an official picture released of Tom Hardy as Venom, but not as Venom, as it's Eddie Brock, right? That's the alias.
Yeah.
Well, it's Tom Hardy.
It's a picture of Tom Hardy.
It's Tom Hardy in a tight long sleeve shirt. That's
bracelets, and papers.
That's all that's there. It sounds like I'm criticizing it. I'm actually excited for Venom.
I'm the exact opposite.
I know Mike has hesitations is an understatement, but I think it'll be decent because of Tom Hardy's involvement, but at the same time, a picture of Tom Hardy, blue button-up shirt and a bracelet. Oh wait, he's got some tattoos. Ooh. He's got some sort of journal. I don't read Venom comics. I don't read comics in general. So maybe Venom's got a thing where, oh man, that's the iconic blue button-up shirt. Like I don't know these things. So
it's a cash cow. It's all it is. They're grabbing for money with this movie. They attached a talented name, and they're gonna try to make this movie good. But I think personally, it's gonna make money. They always make money. But It's gonna be critically panned.
That's interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong. When it comes to a story like this, it's not really even a story. It's literally just a picture of Tom Hardy, as we mentioned. But you know, I think it has a chance to be good. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, and maybe it's going to be nothing special whatsoever. But I think this is definitely a movie that we should review because
Yeah.
we've already. You wouldn't think like, oh man, is like Venom like becoming like a big topic of conversation on the Real Talk podcast, but it kind of has. Every time we have a story about this, we kind of butt heads on our sides of whether we think it's going to be good or not.
I would have more faith in it if they introduced it into the MCU, but because it's apart from that, it makes just no sense to do this. Like, it would make even more sense for economically, because they'd make more money if it was part of the MCU. They'd market it that way, but instead they're just doing their own thing, which it doesn't really make sense for both Sony or Marvel.
Yeah, and what I think is, I think two factors have to play in. One, it's Sony being greedy, where they're going to try and take Spider-Man back for themselves.
Yeah.
And
Which is,
two,
again, dumb.
and two, they want this to be R-rated. And I mean, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but I wouldn't find it crazy if they wanted to put it in the MCU, and Kevin Feige said, "We're not ready to do an R-rated movie yet. Keep it separate." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but now with the whole Deadpool thing coming out, like, they would keep it rated R. That might change.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm also Deadpool's a proven property though.
Yeah,
Venom
true.
isn't.
I
So
don't think Venom's gonna be a proven property. This movie will fail. And
yeah.
are you gonna be excited for Venom 3 in like 10 years? No. I would never be excited for Venom 3.
Give me a trailer. That's all we need. Like, to our listeners out there, be excited when a trailer comes out, because it'll be a hot topic of conversation on the podcast, because we've gone back and forth about this movie a lot, and you wouldn't think it's like a main topic of conversation, but it has become it pretty quickly. All right, moving on to our second news topic. We have news regarding the longly anticipated Black Widow standalone film, and it looks like it's getting closer to coming to fruition. As Variety reports, one of the longest-running fan complaints in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been the studio's reluctance to give Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow her own standalone film, but now it looks like the studio is finally serious about making that project happen. It has been reported that the studio has hired screenwriter Jacques Schaffer to write a script for the as-of-yet untitled film. Mike, just hearing about this Black Widow film actually getting development, what are your thoughts?
I am excited because I do think the character of Black Widow does need expanding upon, but I understand why this movie's being made now. It's very easy to see why it's being made now. There's two big reasons.
Yeah.
You want to know the big reasons?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. Wonder Woman's success and the whole...
Time's up.
Yeah, the Time's Up movement. Those are the two big reasons. Wonder Woman made a lot of money, and it proven that a superhero movie can succeed with a female lead and a female director, which doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who the director is as long as the movie's good. And I think this will be good because it's a good actress. There's good characters. It's gonna be a good movie. But I do think it wouldn't have happened without that movement in Wonder Woman, kind of in the mix of 2017, early 2018.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I would just say that I don't think this was a spur of the moment thing. I think they've had it. They've had ideas for it for a while, and I feel like, as you said, Wonder Woman's success and the whole Time's Up movement led them to have the courage to pull the trigger on it. And I don't think that they were never going to do one. I just think they were waiting for the right moment.
And it's the perfect moment now.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, Black Widow, I want to see a Black Widow film, but I understand their hesitations before. It's not because it's a female-led movie.
It's because, like, her characterization is kind of...
Yeah, it's very limited.
Bland.
Like, when you contrast the two now standalone movies we're going to get with Black Widow and Captain Marvel as female-led. Captain Marvel, a lot of people will complain about, like, you know, that's the first female movie you're going to do is a character we've never heard of before. At the same time, like, I get that Scarlett Johansson has, like, quote-unquote paid her dues. You don't really, like, need to pay your dues when you're as, like, a Marvel character. You know, it's usually pretty standard that you get your own movie, but there's the exception with Black Widow and Hawkeye.